Hey, hey, y'all. Happy Wednesday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. How are y'all doing today? Okay, let me make sure all the things are working. Okay. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Wealthy and Worthy Wednesday. We are back, having taken the week off for Thanksgiving. So I hope you all really enjoyed your Thanksgiving break. We are back with another Wealthy Worthy Wednesday. Our topic today is, and it'll probably end up being a couple of weeks where we'll cover this topic, but our topic today is really about how women impacted by layoffs can endure this season. So there's been a lot of talk, particularly in professional spaces, LinkedIn, platforms like LinkedIn, just discussions around the over 300,000 Black women specifically that have been laid off from their places of employment. We also know that there's another roughly 250,000 women who were already unemployed before this mass layoff has happened with this new administration. So we're looking at over 500,000, over 500,000 women who have been impacted by these massive layoffs and these high unemployment rates. And so we wanted to come on and just have a conversation, about how we can endure these seasons. And even if your life disruption is not a layoff and you have some other life disruption that is causing you to question your whole life, right? Oftentimes our work is really closely connected to our identities. And so it can be really disorienting when we lose our work, we can lose our sense of self. And so we want to come on, have some discussion today and share a little bit of insight and offer up some support, just to let you know that if you're in this season, right, the women with advanced degrees, with significant leadership experience, you probably have receipts, results, and some resilience, okay? But things like this can make you question, was I good enough? Maybe what could I have done better? What did I do wrong? Maybe. And even maybe question, like, what does this mean for your future? And so we're opening up this discussion and we're talking about it because we want you to know, I want you to know that just because your job or your title has changed, it does not mean that your worth has changed. Okay. I want you all to know that a layoff is not a reflection of your value. It's simply a reflection of the economy. It can be a reflection of just the corporate infrastructure. It could be a reflection of restructuring that's maybe needed. It's also a reflection of systems that often aren't designed with you in mind. Okay, with us in mind. And that's a really, really important thing to remember during times like this. Okay, I want you to understand that you are still brilliant. You are still needed. You are still powerful. You are still employable, and still very much worthy of work that has meaning, that brings life, and that allows you to flourish and thrive. Okay, so that is super, super important. And so as we think about, how to endure these hard times, I often offer up executions to our community each week. There's executions that allow you to really sit with some of the information that I'm sharing. Sometimes I share things and it can be a disruption to the system. I often share things that people maybe haven't heard or that maybe causes them to question what they know. And that's okay. And that's actually an important and a healthy process because oftentimes confusion comes before deep learning. And so that's totally normal. It's totally an appropriate response. And so if that's you, there's no shame. drop me a note in the comments and let me know what questions you have. Okay. What comes up for you as you think about navigating a layoff? Okay. So, as we go into the topic of today, right? I'm very curious to know, those of you that are here, and if you've experienced a layoff, if maybe you're walking with someone else through a layoff, I'm very curious to know for you, what part of your identity feels the most shaken when something like that happens, right? And you may not have an immediate answer to that, but I want you to be thinking about it. And if you do have an answer that comes up, drop it in the chat, because I would love to know and understand more about where you are and maybe what are some of your pain points where I can support you, maybe what questions you have about this experience or this time, that we can offer more resources to you for. Okay. So just to recap, okay, I want to know what part of your identity feels the most shaken when your job title has disappeared, right? And how are you working to reclaim your sense of self outside of work? So for many of you, you're probably like me, and you take work very seriously, and it takes up a significant portion of your life, and it informs, a significant part of your world. And so if that is you, I want you to be thinking about ways that you can still maintain that identity, right? How do you maintain that identity outside of that? So on that, I have some executions for you all for the week. All right. We're going to keep it short and sweet. So the first thing that I want you to be doing, if you've been impacted by the layoffs or you're walking through this process or experience with somebody else, you can invite them to do this with you as well. Right. So the first thing I want you to do is write down the story that you've been telling yourself since the layoff. Okay. Or since maybe you started to notice that there was some instability in your field, maybe in your organization, in your sector, maybe in your team. Okay. I want you to write that story down. And it may take you some time to think about it, right? And then, okay, let's see. Somebody just wrote in and said, I work a high turnover job and I hop from one to the other. The longest I've had now has been 4 years. Okay, that's great. Someone says, hi, welcome. What type of doctor are you? Oh, that's okay. That's not what we were talking about, but thanks for the question. So you may be wondering, right? What type of doctor am I? I am a researcher. So I'm a PhD, not an MD. So I prescribe perspective and not prescriptions. All right. So if you are here and you're new to our community, welcome. Super glad to have you. All right, so back to our execution. All right, so the first task I have you doing is writing down the story that you've been telling yourself since your layoff. The second thing that I want you to do is rewrite that story with truth. Okay, so think data, facts, right? Not how you feel, not how you think, not what you assume, not what you believe. Write the truth. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So the story that you may be telling yourself, maybe I was let go because I wasn't as valuable on the team, right? Maybe I wasn't valuable enough, right? Maybe that's the story that you haven't said out loud, but maybe that's the story that you think, right? That you have in your mind, right? And so an example of the truth, right, would be the company just made a business decision. My skills and my worth are still intact. Okay. And I want you to say that out loud to yourself, right? Because I think it's important that you rewire that story, that narrative that you're telling yourself as it relates to being laid off. Okay. And then, okay, so let's recap. All right. First thing, write down the story you've been telling yourself. Second thing, write down the truth. Okay. And I think that's super important. It's a super important distinction, right? Because oftentimes the stories that we tell ourselves, particularly when we are in painful or really tough experiences, may not always be the truth, right? It may be filtered through our lenses of the past or of um, fear or shame or other big emotions, right, that come up that can potentially taint the stories that we tell ourselves and thus the stories that we tell other people, right, about what has happened to us in our lives. Okay, so now the third execution step is to take one courageous action today. All right. We're not waiting until all the stars align, right? We're not waiting for the perfect moment, right? We are executing now. We're not waiting for the new year. All right. We're starting now. Okay. So, what is the one courageous action that you're taking today? That could look like updating your resume. It could look like sending one strategic email. It could look like joining a supportive space like the Legacy League, right? Partnering with folks who have similar values and who have similar goals can help you endure these seasons of disruptions, right? And it's those small steps, those small efforts that compound when you're consistent. Okay, so your execution, right? Let's go back over it. Number one, write the story, write it down. What have you been telling yourself about this layoff, about this life disruption? Number two, rewrite that story with truth, focusing on the facts. Okay, we want the goal of that, right, is to allow us to get out of our primal, our survival brain, and to move into more of a conscious and awareness, where we can see things more objectively, thus see them more clearly and make more informed decisions about how we want to move forward. It will also allow you to get out of that fight or flight so that you can better see what options are available to you and in front of you so that you can leverage those opportunities. Okay. And then the third step in that execution is going to be taking one courageous action today. All right. Again, thinking about updating your resume. Maybe you're updating your LinkedIn, or if you don't have a LinkedIn, maybe you're getting on LinkedIn so that you can start making more professional connections, right? Maybe you're sending that strategic email or DM, right? Asking someone maybe for a virtual coffee chat to understand more about what's happening in their space. And again, maybe you join a supportive space or a supportive community that can help you endure these hard times, right? A problem shared is a problem halved. And so if you're going through something really difficult or you're trying to rewrite the story of your life, it is very important that you get in and get connected to community. Okay. So those are the three steps that we have for you today for the execution. All right. The way that you're going to endure this season, right, is by making sure that you are focusing on reclaiming your identity, making sure that you are anchoring yourself in the truth and that you are creating some distance between maybe some of the hard emotions that may come up for you in this experience. Okay. So that's what I want you to be thinking about this week. Okay. Let me know, what questions do you have? Let me know what pain points maybe are coming up for you. Maybe what is hard about this, right? Maybe what's difficult about this execution. Maybe those action steps that I'm encouraging you to take, maybe they're hard to take. Maybe share why. Why is it difficult? What's coming up for you? Why do you hesitate when it comes time to put yourself out there? Okay, because those things will help you better understand where you need support and how you can better move forward with support. Okay. All right, so that's all that I have for you guys today. I want to make sure that these Wealthy Worthy Wednesdays stay efficient, right? Where I'm just giving you some really, really strategic strategy for how you can implement now. Okay. Again, I want you all to be really focusing on getting comfortable taking imperfect action. All right. If you are experiencing a layoff, this is not the time for analysis paralysis, or procrastination, right? Like, we're not waiting for all the signs. We are taking decisive action. And so it's going to be really important that you stay anchored in that, so that you can endure this time better, and also so that you can more readily identify the opportunities that are available to you looking forward. Okay, so that's all I got. We will check back in again next Wednesday, and we'll continue the conversation, right, about how can you endure this season. Okay, and whether this season, we're talking specifically about layoffs, right, but there's probably many of you who are impacted in this season just because it's been a really hard year. 2025 has been a really difficult year for a lot of us. And so if that is you and you have a life disruption that's causing you to doubt, like, how do you endure, how do you stand in this space? I actually hosted a webinar I think it's now been a few months ago, called Steady in the Storm. Right. And I shared some tips about how to make sure that you're steady when the storm comes, right? Because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? Because life be life and for everybody. All right. So we want to make sure that you have those tips, those skills, those strategies, the community of support to help you move through those things, not perfectly, right? But we want to move through them intentionally. And we want to reduce the amount of suffering as much as possible, right? Because change can be difficult, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to suffer. So that is all I have this week. We'll check back in, same place, same time next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. So again, drop me notes in the comments. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what comes up for you. I'm happy to help, and I want to make sure I'm supporting you all during this time of transition. All right. We'll check in again soon.